Hey, man. You can't pick movies anymore.
Yeah.
You lost your privilege, dude. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's a heavy one.
Oh no, heavy does not even. God damn, like, dude, this was like 3 horribly sad movies all intertwined into one horribly sad movie, man. Oh my god, what's going on, everybody? Critic and the Common Man here, and as you can tell by the thumbnail, we are going to be reviewing the saddest movie of all time. Life Itself. Life Itself can be found on Amazon. It's included with Prime, so if you have Prime, you can give this one a watch. You probably already did if you're watching this one. What the hell, man? This was, wow. This was a powerful movie and a really, really sad movie, but, geez, it's like it checks all the boxes. It was unexpected. It was
unexpected.
Unpredictable,
that's an understatement.
Sad, interesting. I liked it. I really liked it. Why? Why did you pick this one? What about Life Itself? Because you'd seen it before.
Yeah.
I hadn't. So what about Life Itself made you decide that you would inflict this pain on me?
Well, the biggest reason that I watched this movie, not when I picked it for the podcast, but when I watched this movie where I was like, I'm going to give this movie a shot, see what it's about, was because it had Oscar Isaac. I believe it's Olivia Wilde.
Yep.
Andy Patinkin and Antonio Banderas. And when I saw that lineup of actors, I was like, holy shit, like I have to watch that. And so when I watched it, I connected with the movie, because I guess it's not really about like Latino life, but there is a connection to Hispanic culture. And so by association, obviously, I feel a bit of a connection with it because even though I guess technically I'm Spanish, but even though I'm not Spanish, it was still really cool seeing a portrayal of these characters, that are, it just, I don't know, it gave me a little bit of pride to see a Spanish-speaking hero, I guess. I mean, even the movie calls Rodrigo the hero. So I don't know, for whatever reason, it just resonated with me, and the emotional impact that this movie leaves is unbelievable.
Oof.
Yeah, and so I wanted to, I don't know, I guess I picked it because the real reason I picked it is because I really liked this movie a lot. It's easily one of my favorite movies. And when I read the reviews, it got destroyed. I think Rotten Tomatoes gave it 14%.
The scores are absurd on this movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I can go ahead and preface what I'm going to say about this movie by telling you that the reception that this movie got was horrendous. I mean, it's absurd. Yeah, it got a 14% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes. That's horrible. Mm-hmm. That's horrible. That's not even close.
That means Capone got better.
Yeah, we can't. Oh man, I don't even want to. Yeah, it's a shame. Yeah. It's a shame. But
so I guess I picked it because I wanted to see what your thoughts were, because I was like, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am able to pick out the good in too many movies, and I wanted to see from an unbiased opinion what somebody else would think.
No, I don't think you're wrong. I think, as much as I don't hate to admit it, I'm joking. It was powerful. It's a tearjerker for sure. But I'm joking and saying that, like, oh, why would you make me watch that? This movie was phenomenal, and it was really, really unpredictable, which was refreshing. We've watched a lot and we've reviewed a lot of fairly predictable movies on this podcast lately. This one really was not. Like you said, loaded cast, and that's what you immediately recognize. Oscar Isaac, Olivia Wilde. It was funny seeing Antonio Banderas in this. Not really funny. I mean, he's a really good actor, and he played that role well. But just a good film. Mandy Patinkin, I've seen him in a lot of things. Criminal Minds,
I kept saying Andy.
Yeah, I think it is Mandy with an M.
Yeah.
Mandy Patinkin. Yeah, but
Mr. Patinkin, I'm so sorry.
I didn't really know what to expect when it first started, because you start out with this thing and it's Samuel L. Jackson's voice narrating through, and I was like, what is this? And I really went into this knowing nothing about it. I can't believe I had never even heard of this movie before. And even more surprisingly, neither had my wife, who is a big fan of like the, kind of sap story, kind of sadder, more emotional movies. She really likes those, and I had never heard.
What
of
did
this
she think
before,
of this
either
movie?
one of us. She loved it. She loved it. We were both like freaking crying when this thing was over, dude. It was awful. Oh my God.
Yeah.
We had to like walk away and like go outside for a little bit. It was brutal.
To hug something. Yeah.
Yeah, damn.
Yeah, man.
This movie was very, very. It's weird. It was very real in the subject matter that it talks about, but the whole like the unpredictable or the unreliable narrator and like almost like the butterfly effect kind of essence to it that we were seeing seemed a little bit more far-fetched. But then at the same time, you're kind of like you're pulled into just how real it is with everything that happens, with all the death and the people that the ways that they die, and the relationship building in this movie. I don't think I've ever seen a movie that had better chemistry or relationship building between these multiple pairs of people throughout this entire film. I was blown away at how well Will and Abby, and I had to look at their names because I just think of Oscar Isaac and Olivia Wilde, but how well Will and Abby seem to just be real.
In love. You totally think they're in love.
Oh, head over heels in love. And they go to their parents' house, to Will's parents' house, and there's the awkwardness of the mother-in-law saying the stupid things she shouldn't be saying, and they're like that kind of, but they're comfortable because they've known it. It just felt so relatable. Their relationship felt so freaking relatable in like every way. But then, oh my God, it builds you up with this like powerful relationship that you really like, and then it just rips it away from you so fast. And I will say, as unpredictable as Abby's death was, I was not expecting Will to die because I thought that the whole movie was about them. I thought the whole movie was about Will and Abby.
Yeah.
So when it's like he shows the therapist getting hit by the bus and you're like, oh my God, like what happened? But then you realize that obviously what actually happened was Abby was hit by the bus.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, holy shit, this movie's going to now be about like, it was now going to be about Will, I guess, going through time, maybe finding another love. I didn't really know what to expect. And then he kills himself. And I almost had to pause the movie.
Oh, I paused it.
Because he kills himself,
like,
and it's
what
like,
the fuck?
Well, yeah, and you're just thinking, what is this movie?
Yeah.
Like, what is this?
Well, because you're right. You're thinking, what am I watching? At the same time that you're processing the amount of sadness that you just saw. God. I mean, it leaves this pit in your stomach that you don't know how to process. And you're expected to go into the next scene all of a sudden, and you're just like, oh God, okay, like you don't even have time to cry at that. Like it was
no, you don't, man, because you're stunned. You're just stunned throughout the whole cutscene of it going to the next chapter. And it's also everybody loves Oscar Isaac so much now. I mean, us from Star Wars and everything. He's been in a few things lately, and he's been so good. And he's just kind of that lovable guy now. You really like him.
Yeah. Speaking of him, really quick.
Go ahead.
Have you? I don't know if you've ever seen Sucker Punch.
No, I actually haven't seen Sucker Punch. I know the movie, but I haven't seen it.
It's. I mean, all it is it's visually, it's cool. That's it. You're not really missing much. It's a comic book movie, but he plays the main guy in that, or the main villain in that movie. I remember seeing him in that and thinking, holy shit, this guy's an incredible actor. And then I saw him in Star Wars, and I was like, "Wow, he's great! Like, he's funny, he's charismatic." Did you know that he plays Apocalypse in the new X-Men movie?
Are you serious?
In X-Men Apocalypse, he is Apocalypse under all that makeup.
Dude, I did not know that was him.
Yeah.
Oh, man. You know what? It's like once we started like really, because again, like I usually just go to movies and watch them. I don't really do any like prior research for a lot of these things. So now that we're doing this podcast and I'm like looking more into who all these people are, it's crazy what you start to pick up on.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
These same actors and actresses. Yeah, I didn't even recognize that was him.
He is a versatile actor, and I think arguably one of the best actors of our generation.
He's up there. He's phenomenal. He's phenomenal in basically everything that he does. He was on, I saw him on social media doing some weird stuff lately with the lady who plays the aunt in the new Spider-Man. He was doing like a reading for some, I don't know if it was like a charity thing or what, but he's doing like a play. Like he's reading for a play, and it was like really sexual. And they're like basically like just like, It's like Oscar Isaac and the aunt from the new Spider-Man movies, like basically just like talking super dirty to each other, and it felt so uncomfortable, dude.
What?
I was like,
I'm gonna
this
have
is
to look that up.
weird. Yeah, this is
Wow.
weird, but yeah, you could find that if you wanted. It is out there, so if you're really into Oscar Isaac, you can find some a little bit darker content out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, who else? I'm trying to think of who else in our generation, these actors that are coming up that are just really talented. Not just that we like them, but that they just have range like that.
Yeah.
He's right up there. Sure.
Yeah,
I'll
absolutely.
forfeit that for sure. He is right up there. But he did a great job in this movie of just being genuine, and you're seeing them go to the Halloween parties and they're dressed up as Pulp Fiction characters, and you like them so much because their story feels so real. And then just as quickly as they lay it out, it's taken away from you after this first chapter, and that stunned me. But then the second chapter I thought was beautiful for the most part, and then of course that digresses too. But wow, I mean, all of a sudden you get sent into, actually wait, was the second chapter was following
His
what took
daughter
them to,
with
oh, it was
Mandy
the daughter.
Patinkin.
Never mind. I was thinking it went to Spain next. At
That
the
was
vineyard.
chapter 3.
That was chapter 3.
Yeah.
So then it was the daughter, which continues to be horribly sad because her grandmother dies, and then her dog
And then her
dies.
dog dies.
Oh,
Dude, when you see the dog laying there, I was in tears. I was like, I can't fucking do this. I was like, I can't.
dude, we almost had to stop the movie. Like we were like really broken up. Like this
Yeah.
movie is, I've watched The Notebook. I've watched the like sappy story movies. And,
Yeah.
dude, and they're sad. No, I'm not saying they're not sad or anything like that, but this was, it felt way more real. It
It's
felt
real,
way
yeah.
more like down to earth,
Yeah.
more relatable.
But what's crazy is that it does this great job of putting humor in between the levels of sadness, or putting in like moments of beautiful imagery. So again, this is the reason I love this movie, is because I've been saying it a lot, is the dynamic range you have. And I think you put it in a much better phrase recently, where you said that it was the peaks and valleys.
Yep.
That's what you want in good writing. You want to have that moment where your emotional levels are through the roof, where you just have no idea how to process, and then have a moment to recover. And when I was learning how to write scripts, and obviously break the rules once you know how to write scripts. I'm not saying this is not a master class on how to write scripts, but what you're taught is that at the end and beginning of every scene, the emotional range should flip-flop. That way you have, like if the last scene ends negatively, the next one should start positively. That way you have that moment to process and build up the next scene or whatever. And so this movie does that perfectly, because you have this really sad moments where he's talking about whatever. At the point in the movie, you don't know what's happening, but he's talking to his therapist about this something, heavy. And then at the same time, you have moments where he's looking at his wife and he's like, "Are you pregnant?" It's just, they did such a great job of building those characters up and making us love them and fall for them. And then moving on to the next part of what this is. This is a generational movie. That's what it is. And it's incredible.
Dude, and you're so right, because it's not even, I don't even know that I would say it's the comedy that like is breaking it up. It's like what you said. It's like the emotional shift in these scenes. Like you go from, okay, Abby dies, and you're extremely sad. And then there is a little bit of comedy that kind of picks you back up. But then all of a sudden you're watching this beautiful love story unfold between these two people who have nothing, and they're on another side of the world basically. And it's like, oh, well, now I'm like happy again. But I was kind of on edge because I'm thinking like, oh, what's going to happen to them now? Like, what's going to happen? And albeit their story was not quite as sad. Now, the mom dying of cancer was horrible. Of course, that was tremendously sad. But just like how they like kind of their rough spots and stuff with the kid having seen Abby die, then right there at the front of the bus, like, him needing help. That, of course, digressed into something very sad. But, oh, yeah, the emotional range of this movie, like, you will be, like, laughing and happy, and then all of a sudden you're like, what just happened? Like, more, like, you've seen some of the darkest stuff you've ever seen in a film. Yeah. And then you're, like, happy again, and you're seeing, what was his name? The Spaniard who, the father of the boy. What was his name?
Javier.
Then you're seeing Javier and his wife, like getting the keys to their new house because he gets to stay there on the vineyard, and they're dancing and flirting and all that. And it's like, oh, this is beautiful. Like, this is a beautiful story.
Yep.
And again, the chemistry between them was insane too. I completely bought that they were actually
incredible acting left and right, dude.
Definitely.
Now, really quick, since you brought up the Spain side of it, I want to talk about the scene where Antonio Banderas' character, his last name starts with an S, and I can't remember.
Sascione?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's how you do it. So when his character has asked Javier to come inside, and they're both sitting down, and he just starts telling Javier this story of his father, the great fuck of a father is what they said, and rough translation, but and he starts telling him about how he got the vineyard and all this stuff, and he is the boss. He's the owner of this land. He runs the entire olive orchard. It'd be an orchard, right? Vineyard? Is it a vineyard?
Well, I don't know. I mean, they're olives, so I guess it would be a vineyard. But they make olive oil. They're not making wine, so I don't really know.
But aren't olives trees? Aren't olive trees?
Yeah, that's true.
I don't know. But whatever the case, he is very much in power in that scene. He's the only one speaking. And he talks about how his father, left his mom, and his father forgot to write a will, and so all of the money got inherited by him. And then he says, so, because he sees Javier picking the olives by hand, and none of the other workers do that by hand. He has to work twice as many hours because he has to meet a quota, I'm assuming. But he asks Javier, why do you pick it by hand when everybody else is using rakes? And he starts kind of pressing him on this situation, and I guess what I'm getting to is that even though he is the boss, and it is implied that he has the power in this scene, the one with the real power is Javier, because Javier is just listening to him, not nervous. He's not at all intimidated or anything. He is very humble and simple, and he says, because it's the right thing to do. And then he says, well, I can't believe that's the answer. I just told you my entire life story. Doesn't it make you like me more or whatever? And he says, no, I wouldn't have taken the money.
Yeah, that was an intense back and forth. And again, you're at that point in the movie, you've already seen enough to where you have no idea where this movie's going. You don't know how this story is going to end. You don't even really know what's going to happen to Javier. You're scared to let your guard down at that point, because when he went in there to talk to him, Mr. Sascione or Sasciatone, whatever it was, and he's talking to him, I'm thinking, oh shit, he's going to get fired. Or this is where this, it starts their downward spiral. Mm-hmm. Little did I know he was about to promote him to, what's it called? The foreman of his land. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to be bad. So I had my guard up, and I could feel, props to Antonio Banderas, or just the director, whoever it was, but I could feel the tension of Javier going, why am I here? What is this conversation? We've all been there where you get called into a boss's office or something. You think you're in trouble. They're kind of talking to you, and then it turns out it's nothing really. And you're like, okay, but you're stressed. Mm-hmm. And I felt that. And I'm thinking, where in the world, what is going to happen here? Is this guy going to get fired? Is he going to get arrested?
And you know what it is?
What?
It's this slow build, the entire scene, because there's no music. It's like maybe 3 different shots, and most of the shots are just long shots that are held on Antonio Banderas as he's talking.
Yep.
And then you get a second where you see the reaction of Javier, but you're holding this shot on Antonio Banderas as he's speaking for too long, and again, it leaves us uneasy because we're expecting something more, because the shot is going on for too long.
What movie is the masterclass in doing that? Inglourious Bastards, dude.
Oh, absolutely, dude.
That movie is a masterclass on that tension and uncomfortably long discussions, man.
Every Tarantino movie is a masterclass on how to direct. I will fight you if you don't believe me. You may not like his movies, but holy shit, can that guy write and direct? But anyways.
Yeah, the acting there was really good, and to see their story of Javier and his wife, I don't remember her name. Javier and his wife kind of come up and raise their son was beautiful. But again, this movie is you have no idea what to expect. This is about as unpredictable as a movie as I've seen in a very long time. So very much props to the director in that. Let me take a little bit of a shift here, because this is what I will say. And listen, again, the 14% score and all that, I'm not even gonna, I don't even want to talk about that. That's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. But here's where I will say the movie lost a little bit of marks for me, because there weren't many places. Mm-hmm. The intertwining of all these stories and this kind of butterfly effect of their relationships, I thought was a little bit far-fetched compared to how
I can
real the
absolutely see
rest
that.
of the movie felt. Now, I don't know if this is like based on some crazy true story. I doubt it. I have no idea. But like for how real the rest of this movie felt, and now it's like, oh, okay, so you're telling me that the boy was in the bus that killed Abby, and then he's going to grow up to marry Abby's daughter, even though he lives in Spain and just happens to go to NYU, and they're there together. That to me, unfortunately, not that it's, listen, that was just part of the plot of the movie. You just have to kind of take that in. But this movie almost could have been called The Butterfly Effect to me. You know what I mean? It was like, and I get that like they were trying to kind of emphasize that unreliable narrator kind of
You don't know where life is going to take you.
Exactly. And like you don't know who you are or like where you're going, but you just kind of have to enjoy your life. That is the only way, and so that's it. So again, huge props. That is the only way to me that this movie kind of lost marks, was just that I thought the intertwining of the stories was a little bit too good to be true.
There is nothing else that took you out of the movie?
I mean, dude, not really. I mean, not
So,
from
like,
what it was.
Did you think that when like Abby is bringing up her thesis for her paper and stuff, did any of that feel too on the nose for you?
Oh,
Like,
you
did
mean
it
how
feel-
like, okay, this, like she's talking about like what this movie is about kind of thing? Like,
Did it
it's
feel a little
in
too
your face.
preachy? Yeah.
It felt a little too like she's supposed to be having this big breakthrough, and we're all supposed to be kind of like accepting it as true, sort of thing. And you know, it's kind of interesting what she's talking about. Of course, like, you know, she lost me when she tried to make the jump to like life. When she was like, "Oh, well, any story with a narrator is unreliable because there's a bit of a dissonance between the narrator and the." I was like, "Okay, that's kind of an interesting thought." But then she's like, "So really, life itself is the ultimate unreal." I was like, "Okay, all right, slow down.
Yeah,
Like,
like,
wait a second.
That's a bit of a jump in conclusion. I agree.
Yeah,
But that's one of the comments I read a lot was that people felt like the movie was too on the nose, and I just didn't feel that. I didn't feel like the movie, obviously that's the theme of the movie. It's the title of the movie. But I didn't feel like she was preaching what the movie was about. But you're right. I did feel like it was a bit of a jump, but even she mentioned that her professor gave her like low marks because it felt like
her thesis failed. Exactly.
Yeah, because it felt like philosophy rather than an analysis, which I 100% agree. But the thing is, I've had conversations with people like that.
Yeah.
And I guess, I don't know if it's because maybe it's because I was an art major. Like, I guess the philosophy side of things is just kind of like normal to me. But that didn't take me out of the movie. And I just wanted to see if maybe it took you out of it.
No, it didn't really. It just kind of gave the movie a little bit more substance and gave it wasn't too on the nose for me. Was it a little bit far-fetched? Sure, but I didn't think this movie was trying to like push this theory on you to accept. You know what I
Right.
mean? It's not like they're like, "Oh, you're going to be this is like some weird conspiracy theory movie. You're going to be thinking about this afterwards." Like, I didn't really think it was trying to do that. It just felt like, okay, this is that got a little like philosophical, but they didn't really, that wasn't too in your face the whole movie, I didn't think. When it's telling their story, and then when it's telling Javier's story, I didn't think that was like right there. Like they're like forcing you on this thought of like how life is the unreliable narrator kind of thing. It just, again, I do feel like this movie could have easily been titled The Butterfly Effect, because it was basically trying to tell you how like, it's crazy how like these things can like happen, and one little thing can happen and it can like change your whole life, and like you don't know how you're intertwined. That was a little bit too out there for me. But no, there wasn't a whole lot that took me out of this movie, I wouldn't say.
It didn't feel far-fetched to me because I recently saw a post, I think it was on Reddit, where this guy posted a photo of him and his fiance. They were about to be engaged. And he said, I showed my mom a photo of, and they took a photo on this patio. They're like, I showed my mom a photo of me and my fiance, and we thought that we met in college. And then he puts up a photo of them two as kids, and he said, apparently we met when we were like 4 years old. So like these two people that ended up getting engaged had already met each other and had no idea. So
That is crazy.
Like, is it crazy? Yeah, absolutely. It's absurd to think that kind of stuff happens, but I feel like it happens. And I think this is just one of those movies that it's like, you know, is it coincidence? Is it fate? And I think that's really the whole theme of the movie, is that life is the one that's guiding you in the direction that you're meant to, whether or not you see it. So, I mean, yeah, you're right. It does feel far-fetched, but I guess it didn't take me out of it enough. But I'm a hopeless romantic.
I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying, like, those stories obviously are few and far between. But
Yeah.
it's like the kid was the reason the bus driver was distracted. The boy. That's what killed Abby.
Mm-hmm.
Abby survived that. He went to NY. It was a little too much. Like, you're not gonna see a Facebook story of that, I don't think.
No.
Like, it's one thing to say, like, hey, you and this chick from your hometown, like, you met when you were little kids, you didn't realize it, but then you met again in high school or college or whatever, and like,
That's
like,
true.
okay, that's not impossible. Like, I wouldn't say that's that far fetched.
It's the force.
Right. Like, even me and my wife, we'll talk about that sometimes. Like, man, like, it's crazy. Like, we were both in band in high school. We were probably at the same band competition and didn't even know it. You know what I mean? Like, you could really, I mean, there's a lot of things like that probably happen to a fair amount of couples. I'm not going to say a lot, but definitely some. It definitely happens. This story that they intertwined, or that they were telling us, was just a little bit too coincidental for me. But that's it. That really, as far as negatives for this movie go, that's it. I mean, it just felt a little much. So that's kind of what keeps this one from being like right there at the top for me. But again, really, really interesting movie, and one of the most powerful movies I think I've ever seen.
For me, one of the only things that drew me out of it, I agree with what you're saying. I just like to play devil's advocate and get both sides. But I agree. There are things about that pulled me out of it. Not enough for me to like say that it took the movie down a step for me, but I think it's because I read the writing, like I see the writing on script in my head, and so for me the writing is like the juiciest part of this movie. But anyways, right. For me, one of the things that pulled me out of it was that at the end we see that she is like an author, and she's reading excerpts from. So basically, two things. One, that felt a little too on the nose, that the narrator of the movie that is talking about having an unreliable narrator is narrating a book. And second, we're supposed to just believe that she just read the entire book to this audience. Like, do people do that? Do people just go listen to somebody read for hours?
No. I think it's like you read a chapter, or it's like a book signing. Like, that's what a book signing is, I think. You go, you read a couple pages, and then you sign some books. She's not reading the whole thing.
But she talked for 2.5 hours. I mean, I guess not.
Shit.
I guess
that
not.
Whole movie was supposed to basically be her talking through that story.
Maybe not, because you're right. We only hear her speak a few times.
No, I'm sure she was just doing like a small book signing thing where she goes and she says, I'm going to read a chapter from my book. I think that's a pretty normal thing. Like, I think
I
any authors could probably confirm that that's a fairly normal practice.
I would have rather not seen that scene at the end, but I guess that's just me being a little picky. Yeah, I mean, other than that, yeah, the movie's emotional levels were powerful. Like, dude, after Abby dies and after Will shoots himself in the head, which I want to come back to that. But after that, and it's basically her grandfather raising Dylan.
Yes.
I don't know what it was, man, but there was something so powerful and so humbling and yet sad in seeing this grandfather have to become the father alone.
Yeah.
And there was, I don't know what it is, but I don't know if it makes me think of my parents, and I mean, because you're struggling with the idea of somebody getting older this entire movie. And maybe that's just something that is just like, I don't want to think about, but it was just so powerful to see him, especially when at the beginning of that scene, of that whole chapter, when the little girl is saying what she was feeling but not saying, and then he responded by not saying what, you know what I mean?
That was incredible writing. That whole interaction where they say what they were actually thinking and then they say what that was incredibly well done. Yeah,
because it takes a dive into how people actually feel and don't ever say. And so what you're seeing is this old man who should not be a father, but he has to be a father because of this tragedy, having to cope with these feelings that he does not have time to feel. because now he has to raise this child. And in my opinion, that to me was one of the most powerful things, because then you see him older and she's 21 and he's seeing that he can't tell her what to do. And the most beautiful thing to me is that he said he was going to squeeze out 10 more years. And instead of making it to her 16th, he made it to well past. And on top of that, man, see, the thing is, I just watched this
Critic
movie
is fired up.
Yeah.
Critic is fired up, ladies and gentlemen.
I watched it again. So this is like now like the fourth or fifth time I've seen this movie.
Nice.
But I literally watched it again right before we jumped on.
Nice.
When he watches his son and his future daughter-in-law leave, and they're on the walk that eventually kills her, he's watching them from the same window that he watches Dylan leave when she goes out.
I didn't even pick up on that.
It's the same shot, dude. It's over the
Yeah, I
shoulder,
didn't even
except
pick up on
one's
that.
in
I
the
know
daytime.
exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, one's in the daytime and one's at night. But when you think about it, that night when she goes out and she goes drinking and she gets into that fight and then she goes, that's the night that she goes and meets Rodrigo. It's the same night. So in one shot, we're seeing this beautiful sunny shot that ends in a tragedy. And in the second one, we're seeing this nighttime shot.
God, dude, you're blowing my mind.
Yeah, we're seeing this nighttime shot that starts as a tragedy because he's seeing his daughter basically go, and he thinks, she's ruining her life, and he's depressed and she's sad.
Dude.
And it ends with her
Critic,
finding her happiness.
The Critic.
It's just
You're blowing my mind, dude.
I'm
Yeah,
watching
I didn't
this.
even pick up on that.
I'm watching this for the the upteenth time, and so I'm picking up all these things, but I don't know, man. It's a powerful movie.
Let's try to make sense of this, man. I'm going to read to you a 1-star review that's on
I'm
Rotten
sure
Tomatoes.
that I've read the exact one.
You probably have. It's a little bit long, so I'm just going to speed read it real quick. All right, quote, "Okay, let's listen to Hoobastank now," end quote. "This glib meta treatment of Paul Haggis's Crash brought to us by the screenwriter of Cars is tonally stupid. Starting off aggressively obnoxious,
wow.
Every character played by this mostly A-list cast seems to be a different facet of the same depressed 40-year-old hipster. It's ridiculously saccharine, I don't even know what that word means, saccharine at times, trying desperately not to come off as pretentious and failing. Okay. At the halfway mark, it turns on a dime from a coy exploration of mortality to a Spanish melodrama. There's a method to the madness, however, because all of the contrived emotional whiplash is there to provoke a nice Hallmark Channel cry." What? Dude, Hallmark Channel... All right. No, we watched fucking Feel the Beat. That was a Hallmark Channel cry. All right, sorry. Hallmark Channel cry. But it's hard to muster up any tears when you're too busy rolling your eyes. I'm not the only person to point this out, but it's easy to see the comparisons critics have drawn between this and Collateral Beauty. If there were one film this year that I would recommend watching just to experience the sheer baffling awfulness of it, Life Itself, it would be Life Itself. Fuck off, dude.
And I was watching this earlier again with Miranda, and I was like, anybody who gives this a 1-star needs to fuck off, because how?
I just don't agree with that in any.
Yeah.
I don't agree with that at all. I don't agree that it was a Hallmark laugh. That was some of the most real content I've ever seen in a movie.
So here's my argument. I think that for some people, this movie is too real. I think for some people, there is an emotional level in this film that shuts their brain down. And I think that's why, because I was reading some reviews where somebody was like, I can't believe Samuel L. Jackson would put himself through this. I turned it off after the first 10 minutes. And I'm like, he wasn't in it.
The whole movie. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, you literally turned it off. They were like, I can't believe he was narrating. Like, I'm not about to listen to him narrate the entire thing. And I was like, he didn't. You didn't give the movie a chance.
As always, with any of these reviews, if you guys are watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to it on iTunes, Spotify, whatever, please, if you have something to say, jump over to YouTube. If you guys are watching this right now, please, I want to know. I mean, honestly, if you didn't like this one, just throw a comment down and let us know why. I'm actually really interested. We're not going to get into some fight in the comment section. I would love to hear your opinion. Because to me, I've told you what took marks away from me. It wasn't anything all that important even to the movie, so still a phenomenal movie. But like reviews like that, it makes me think that they didn't even watch the same movie.
Yeah,
I just can't. I can't agree with that. I can't see that. I just don't think it's correct. Which again, of course, is why we're doing this podcast. This is like literally seeing this is what spawns you and I to have these conversations.
But you're right. It's different when it's like the critics saying that the movie's terrible and then the reviews are good. for like the people side, the whatever the hell
Right.
it's called on Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score.
Yeah,
But
the audience score.
I don't see how you can take a movie like this and give it a 1-star review. Like, you didn't try at that point. You didn't try. You didn't open your mind to the film.
Well,
I
and
read
you know
this
what,
review.
man? If you, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say I read this review that said turn the critic off in your mind and
Right.
allow the movie to take you where it's. The movie is literally a commentary on life. And you need to be, if you're going to sit down and watch this movie, if you haven't already, I don't know why you're listening to this, but if you're going to sit down and watch this movie, you have to be able to turn your brain off and allow the emotions to go where they need to go. Because if you're going into this movie as a critic, you're already blocking off you're already
Yeah,
setting yourself up with a wall and a barrier. You're not going to feel anything that the movie is trying to make you feel.
I will agree that this movie is saccharine. There you go. I will agree that this movie is sad. It's supposed to be. There's a purpose to the emotion that this movie brings in. It's not. You don't think that the director meant to make this movie sad when he killed
it's like-
fucking Abby in the middle of the road with a bus, or had
It's
Oscar
like saying,
Isaac
like,
shoot
why was
himself?
Schindler's List so fucking depressing? Because
Right,
it's a
like,
movie
because-
about the Holocaust.
Right, that's what it's for. It's meant to elicit
Yeah.
those emotions. That's what the director wanted. That was their choice. It's not supposed to be a happy movie. You know what I mean? You can't take a movie that has depressing tones in it and say, "Oh, this movie was depressing, so it was bad." Well, wait a second. It wasn't never supposed to be like some super crazy happy thing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's not fair. But the audience score on this, so we don't have to stop the conversation. Normally we do when we score it, but just for the conversation's sake, the critic score on this was a 14%. Horrible score, horribly unjustified score. The audience score, however, was an 83%. So I think it's fair to say that certainly there were people that watched this movie and, like us, really enjoyed it. Because we've seen good movies get lower scores than that, audience score wise. So this in no way is a movie that wasn't received well by anyone. There were certainly people out there that really liked this movie.
And there will always be.
Always, and there's people that don't agree with what we're saying. But again, if you're watching this and you picked up on things about this movie you just didn't really like, let us know, because I will totally read the comments. I would love to know why somebody maybe would give this one a little lower score, because I really enjoyed it. The acting in this was just, it was a masterclass. And I liked all of the actors and actresses they chose in this and everything they've done. And now including this, this didn't detract from their resumes in any way. To me, this was very, very well done.
Yeah. I think it's just a controversial movie. And I think it's it's heavy and maybe too heavy for some critics, for some viewers. When you're talking about, you take a family that's here in New York in the United States, and then you all of a sudden switch over to a European side point of view, from a Spanish vineyard or orchard or whatever. I
think you're right. I think it is an orchard, because a vineyard would be grapes.
That's what I thought. I don't know, man.
I think you're completely right. I think,
but I feel like he called it a vineyard in the movie.
I don't know. Somebody will let us know.
I don't know. I guess it does kind of bounce around a little bit. It's like I said, it's not focused on one person. It is a narrator that is focusing on her generations of tragedy that built all of these tragedies that led to the moment that she is now standing in front of these people reading the book that she wrote about her loved ones. That's what the movie's about, dude. And that to me is super powerful. And I don't know if it's because I come from a large family and I've sat down with my parents and I've traced back my family tree, and some of the shit that my family has gone through is unbelievable. To where I believe that somebody should make a movie about my ancestors, because it's a crazy thing to fathom that, oh my God, like there's this whole lineage of people that came before me that also went through a life. It's
Yep.
I think everybody's ancestry is interesting. And we as humans, I think it's funny because we live such mundane lives for the most part. We don't realize that we're living a whole life that's full of memories and full of all of these emotions and things. And we just don't see it all because, you know, we wake up, we go to work, we do our stuff, but this movie kind of puts into perspective how from birth to death there is so much that happens, and
There's
it's a ride, man.
There's a word, and see if you can edit this word in right here. It's kind of a weird word, and I'm trying to it's like not even really an English word, but it's basically the word that describes like the weird sensation of knowing that everybody out there, everybody's life is equally as complex as yours. And it's like the weird idea that like everybody has these stories and experiences and emotions. And this movie, I couldn't stop thinking about that. What is it?
Sondering.
It may be. I don't know.
I'm gonna look it up.
Again, I'll have to look it up after this. But it's the idea that everybody's life out there is full of as many highs and lows and complex moments and big memories as yours is. And I couldn't shake that feeling after watching this movie. I could not shake it. Like, we went in the car to go get food somewhere, and I'm like at the stoplight looking all around. I'm like, dude, all these people are like real people. Like, these are all living people. They've all had their entire... I saw some old guy. I was like, who knows what he's been through? Who knows what kind of ups and downs, all kinds of... I was like, dude, everybody around me has had a life. And this movie, it just like made me think, like, for like 2 days straight after I watched this, I kept thinking about the idea of like, damn, I don't know what like any of these other people have been through and like what has led them to the point they're at in their lives. I have no idea.
So this episode is brought to you by Sonder, Sonder.
Nice.
It is the realization that the realization that each random passerby is living a life as vivid and complex as your own.
Yes. Sondering. You're exactly right. And this one couldn't shake that. Now, I thought what you said was actually kind of interesting. I want to touch on that for a second because it's actually what makes this movie, or a part of what made this movie very unique. This movie doesn't really have a main character. And that is a little bit strange because immediately out of the gun, you think the main character is Oscar Isaac. Or, I mean, you don't know. Like, you don't necessarily know who the main character is, but you assume it's either Oscar Isaac, Olivia Wilde. You don't really know. It could even be Samuel L. Jackson in the beginning. But then, obviously, their whole story changes, and they die. And then all of a sudden, there's a total change in the story being told and who the main character is. And then all of a sudden, it's the son. What was his name? The son?
Rodrigo.
Rodrigo?
Yeah.
Rodrigo. Rod. It could have been Rodrigo.
Or Rigo.
And then it could have been the grandpa. It could have been the dog. It could have been Dylan. Like, this movie, I guess you could say it was the granddaughter at the end, but not really. I don't think you can say she's the main character throughout the whole film because she wasn't in it. So this movie really had shifts in who the main character was, and that was kind of unique.
Yeah.
There's not really a lot of movies that do that.
And for them to do that and build each side of the story that we're listening to and make us care for each side. Yeah. And like and we didn't hate Antonio Banderas' character for falling in love with that guy's wife because he didn't make a move. He didn't say anything. You know, he straight up said, "I will leave you alone. I will stay away from them." And it was Javier's choice to leave because he believed that he couldn't provide what they needed,
right?
Which is such a powerful belief, and that is, I don't know.
It's a very real masculine fear.
Absolutely,
you know what I mean?
That's what I was trying to figure out what to say.
Yeah, that's like a very real male kind of. Just fear, you know, the idea that you can't. That's kind of like a traditional one. Of course, these roles are being changed, but just as a male, like in that traditional sense, that's a very, very real.
You
fear
have to provide
that,
for your
you
family.
can't provide for your family. That's very.
That's a societal thing. Yeah.
Real. Yes, it is. It is. I got a question for you. Do you think, with everything that happened, with how present Abby's death Abby and Will's death is to Dylan, do you think that when she met Rodrigo that night at that bus stop, do you think that she would have been able to kind of forgive him or get past his connection to her story enough to where they would end up being like falling head over heels in love with each other, completely infatuated? Do you think that was realistic, or do you think that there's no way she would have been able to get past the fact that he's basically going to come out. And I'm assuming that night at some point, he's asking, hey, why are you here? She tells him, my mom died here 20 years ago, 21 years ago. And he says, oh, that's really weird because I was in a bus that killed a woman and it was my fault. Do you think they would ever get past that? Or do you think that would just be too much?
So the way I see it, he was very young. He was 6, right?
Right.
The way I see it, I don't think that as a child he would say that he would relate that situation to I'm the one that caused it. I don't know. I mean, I didn't go through a trauma like that.
He had that trauma. Was the trauma, you think, just from seeing her die? Or
I
was
think
the trauma
so.
From, yeah, probably.
But maybe, I mean, you're right, because the last thing that he remembers before that is his dad saying, hey, don't distract the bus driver. So maybe. But at the same time, you could argue that it's just as powerful to think that they were meant to run into each other. And with a story like the one that Dylan has been through, I would see that as a sign rather than, I mean, you're right. It's crazy to think about, but I guess.
Well, and you also make a good point in just bringing up the kid's age. It's not like she could. I mean, of course she would probably at first blame him, but at the same time, it's like it's just fate. Mm-hmm. That's just fate at that point. The kid was 5, 6 years old.
Yeah,
he was a little.
He was
kid.
on a vacation, dude.
He was on a vacation, running around on a bus. You know what I mean? And it's not like he wasn't trying to kill anybody. He's a little kid.
And you know what's sad about that entire thing is that this was a dad who had never taken a vacation before, as they mentioned, and all he wanted to do was provide some joy for his son, to prove that he could be the father that his son needed, and he ends up scarring him, dude. And that's what messes him up mentally, and that's why he leaves. And that it's so sad.
All the elements of this were very saccharine, but rightfully so. They created the story that was life itself. It worked because of the emotional roller coaster in this, because they contrast all of that depression with some beautiful moments, because they contrast death with life, because they contrast losing someone with meeting someone. Because of those contrasts, those peaks and valleys, it's what creates such a beautiful movie, such a beautiful story. And then, of course, the acting and the direction and the camera, the cinematography, all the things that you know more about than me, clearly those worked because I thought it was phenomenal. I was in. I was completely emotionally vulnerable throughout the whole thing.
I don't know if you caught this, but at the end of the movie, and I didn't catch it until this last time, but Bob Dylan plays a huge part of the symbolism in the movie, and I was trying to figure out what the hell, because she's named after him. And so I was trying to figure out what it was. And at the end of the movie, the narrator, their great-granddaughter?
I think she would just be, well, let's see. So Abby's daughter was Dylan. Dylan's daughter was the girl. So just their granddaughter.
You're right. Yeah. So their granddaughter is talking about how Bob Dylan's album, it was criticized. Whoa, what happened to my voice there? It was criticized because it was a super sad, melancholy album with one love song in the center. And the way they describe it, she said that it's in the middle of all of this sad, I can't remember word for word, but in the middle of all of these sad songs, there was one song about love. And that is a reflection of the entire movie. It is literally in the midst of all of that tragedy and all that sadness, there is one love story. And it blew my mind when I caught that, because I was like, holy shit, that's the connection they're trying to make between the Bob Dylan and clearly whoever wrote this, which apparently is the screenwriter for Cars,
I don't know.
They must be a Bob Dylan fan, because that's got to be music that resonated with them on an emotional level that they decided to put into a story. So, and I love that. I love when people do that. Kind of like James Gunn putting in all of those songs in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Yep. Those are songs that reached him, and they touched him in their own way, and now we love them. But I wanted to talk really quick about Will's character, because obviously there's a hint of suicide in this movie. He's a very sad person. Because of the death of his wife, to the point where he refuses to acknowledge that she died. But you get the idea that there's maybe some sort of mental instability there in the Halloween party when he puts the fake gun in his mouth, and he's basically saying say you're gonna marry me,
Right, and she like she really didn't like that.
Yeah, and he was like, "Sorry, that was weird." But
Yeah.
it kind of makes you wonder if there was some instability already there, because she even said, "I'm afraid of I'm afraid of all of like how much you feel." And
Where
and
she's
I
like,
think
I'm not sure I'm capable of being loved that much.
yeah, and
Like,
I
I'm
thought that
not
was
sure
one of the
I'm
most
like
beautiful lines.
right.
And so I guess my question is like, do you see some sort of mental illness there?
I don't know if I saw it before. I saw a guy who maybe was a little awkward. I think the trauma that he had from seeing Abby die with pregnant Abby die right in front of him is what created that break, that psychotic break, whatever. That's what to me, it felt like that's what kind of spurred it. I see where you're coming from. There definitely was like, well, and he even talks about that. He's like, afterwards, he's like, I don't even know what was true. Like, where was it a good conversation? Was I just smothering her? He's just lost it. My perception of it, and again, I don't know, but what I took away from it was what the conversations and stuff they had prior to them both dying were genuine. I thought that the trauma of seeing Abby die, being hit by the bus, is what caused that kind of psychotic break. And that's when he started to lose it. That's when he was institutionalized. But even afterwards, like you were saying, there was some comedy where he like says something. He's like, sorry, I was institutionalized. Like he throws that in there. Like he's funny. He is funny. But no, I don't think that he was supposed to be kind of off the hinge or unhinged. I don't think he was supposed to be unhinged prior to the trauma of seeing Abby die. I think that just being so infatuated with somebody, with anything really, but being so infatuated with someone, and then the idea that she's pregnant and she's going to have your child and you guys are going to be together forever, and it's just taken away from you like that. I mean, before he can even speak with the buses coming, I think that just caused a break in him that led to the events we saw after that. So no, I don't think that he was crazy.
Yeah. I think I agree. It's just something that I picked up on this time, and I just wanted to bring up as a topic.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, overall, this movie is just a freaking roller coaster emotionally and very, very powerful. At the heart of it, it's just a very touching story. It really is. It's just a story
it's
about...
a few touching stories.
Yeah.
It's a few touching stories that kind of intertwine into one overall touching story.
Yeah.
Each chapter is kind of its own
I feel
thing.
like if you were to dive into the backstory of your own history, of your own ancestors and your family tree, you would probably find some crazy, like, movie-worthy stuff.
I would like to do it. I would like to see, because you're probably right.
Like, what were your grandparents doing? What were your great-grandparents doing when they were your age? And to also think about what potentially any future generations that my line or your line would have, to think about their kids, or like, holy shit, man, like it
gets kind of wonky when you start going down the line like that. It gets weird. I'm not good at that, man. Like I fight growing up. Like I am not good at like facing my own morality at all. I don't like doing it. I don't like the idea of like dying or like having to move on or whatever. I've always been bad at it. It's an immature trait of mine for sure, but this movie kind of forces you to face that. It forces you to. There's no escaping it.
When you get into your 60s, like me,
right, you've got more time.
I think you'll learn how to deal with it a little more. Yeah, but I guess let's get down to the scoring, I guess, because
yeah, wow, oh my God, just a really, really powerful movie, really touching. Great acting. In every way, this movie was so well done. Like I said, the only things that keep it from kind of being that perfect movie to me were just that the plot seemed a little bit convenient in the story that they weave together. I didn't know if they were going to get like too philosophical with the unpredictable or unreliable narrator. I didn't really know. And they didn't go too far into that for me. But just overall, a really strong movie. My rating might be a little lower than yours is, but I would say just in general, the number that jumps out to me is 8.5. It's 8.5 out of 10. And just because I'm not good at receiving these movies where it's kind of just meant to take you on this emotional ride. Mm-hmm. Like my brain, because of the movies that I watch, is just more hardwired to see like, this is the plot. action movie, big explosion, it's over kind of thing. So when I do sit down and like kind of take my armor off a little bit, and say, okay, let's watch this and see. I don't always know how to receive it, but all I know is this one brought me on an emotional roller coaster. Great acting, really good, I guess, drama. You would call this one a drama, I suppose.
Yeah.
What do you think it would be?
I would say it's a fantasy horror.
I was like, what? We watch different movies, dude. So I guess drama. 8.5 for me. Solid 8.5. Probably teetering on the edge of being a 9, but I will say this one is a very good 8.5 movie.
I agree. I solid writing, incredible acting. The supporting actors were phenomenal as well. The story is engaging. It's fast paced. It's unpredictable. The cinematography is freaking stunning. On a cinematography level, the very first few shots that we see between Will and Abby are these like up close and personal shots where you're literally just like you're seeing this, and you're just seeing them in bed with all of that beautiful sunlight coming through. Close-ups are used to elicit intimacy. We feel like we're connected to the characters. The farther away you are, the less
Chris,
connected you are.
zoom in on my face. I want like a full zoom in.
I mean, I feel so intimate right now. I feel like you and I have just
that was nice, right?
reached another level. So,
there we
go.
All right, sorry. Keep
no. So it's just good cinematography. They know how to use different shots to pull different emotions out of you. I agree. I think an 8.5 or 9. I'm stuck between those, but because I'm a little biased and I've seen this movie so many times, and I love Oscar Isaac and Mandy Patinkin, and I love Antonio Banderas and Olivia Wilde. She was great in Tron. I'm gonna go with a 9 instead of an 8.5.
Good for you. Good for you.
But yeah, man, it was just it's definitely, I think, the next one I'm gonna write a blog post about.
Good. Yeah, good for you, man. I love it. Thank you for recommending this one, because this is a movie that somehow or another just completely flew under my radar, and definitely, if it hadn't been for you recommending it, would never have seen this, and I'm really glad I did. But that's it. You got anything else for it? So that'd be a 8.75 then for the Critic and the Common Man score of this thing. If you're keeping up on the website.
You're good at that math shit, man. You're good at that math.
Dude. I know, man. I got an MBA, so yeah, dude. So that's it. The Critic and the Common Man review of Life Itself. Beautiful movie, and just heart-wrenching movie at the same time. Really glad that I watched it. Let us know what you guys think in the comments down below. Again, we were kind of fired up throughout part of this one. We don't really think it received a fair score on Rotten Tomatoes at all. Maybe the Rotten Tomatoes moderators need to come in and clean this thing up. But if you guys agree, if you disagree, let us know. If you like the review, as always, we really appreciate a thumbs up. The channel's growing, slowly but surely it's growing, but we're having a ton of fun with it still, so it is what it is.
Yeah.
That's it, Chris. You got anything else for this one?
No.
All right, guys.
Yeah, we are good. I think normally I would put in something funny, but you know what? This movie just deserves a... Yeah.
Yep, just the regular outro. We're out of here. See you guys.